Hello. I was invited to participate in a debating session in central London on the 17th of November. The question that we were debating was, is religion for African people? I was not allowed to complete my presentation due to time constraints, and for me a great opportunity was missed for reconciliation and better understanding to be had. So, I'm sharing this video online as a way of making up for that loss of opportunity and also to encourage the message for tolerance and cohesiveness between different faiths. Do watch through to the end of this presentation, because for us to arrive at that point of reconciliation, we must first go through the history to understand how we are at this point that we are at today. It will help us to better appreciate the present as well as how to plan for a better future. Enjoy and do feed us back any thoughts, comments that you may have after watching this video. Enjoy. Evening all. When I first saw this event advertised on Facebook, it had my picture with the glaring capital letters underneath stating, Dalian Adolfo says, shun all religions, etc, etc. And for me, that was quite disconcerting because I'm not that fundamentalist about anything, to be honest. The very same issue myself and many others have against organized religion is this prescriptive imposition on what it deems right for everyone. It would be hugely hypocritical for me to hold such a stance, and I had to speak to the organizers about that to change the manner of my representation. In African spirituality, we recognize the imprint or essence of the Creator in all things. Therefore, it's never an us versus them approach. This does not mean, however, that I exempt myself from passing commentary on whether any of these religions have a usefulness for Africans, especially when we can clearly observe how they are increasingly becoming impediments to African progress and development. Rather than the upliftment of these people, what we see are barriers preventing cooperation for mutual benefit and the creation of this mental psychosis that promotes a subservient attitude towards lighter-skinned peoples and expressions of self-hatred, particularly towards its ancestral spiritual traditions. We also see how it inhibits the development of personal potential by restricting the exploration of self, whereby people are resorting to seeking their salvation externally to themselves, rather than doing for self and with community. So I will list the 3 impediments that religions are fostering in the African mind again: preventing wider cooperation for mutual benefit, developing a subservient attitude towards mainly lighter-skinned races, low self-esteem that then hinders us socially, economically, and politically. Note that in everything I'm about to cover, it does not just apply to Christianity, but all the religions linked to the mythological figure named Abraham. So we're talking Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. But due to lack of time, and of course the panel being made up mainly of Christians, this is where explicit examples will be drawn from and towards, but it equally applies to all as well. They say an image is worth 1,000 words, a statement not to be taken lightly, as that really is the basis of all the impediments I've just mentioned. Whether you know this or not, it's images that shape our reality. So we have this character we now refer to as Jesus Christ, who started off as being the son of the Christian God, and now is more or less a synonym or is actually interchangeable with his own father. He started off blonde, blue eyes, and then gradually, as the Aryan concept of superiority started catching flack due to the rise of Nazi ideology and the pro-right nationalist movements and the like, his looks also conveniently changed. Now, what we do know for certain is that he was painted by Leonardo da Vinci, and what we are certain about is that he either painted a relative of his or an Italian nobleman at the time by the name of Caesar Borgia, or as some others will contend, is Seraphis from ancient Egypt. Note, in all this confusion, what we know for a fact then is that with all these different representations, no one actually knows what he really looks like. So why is he still in every church? One of our esteemed scholars, ancestor scholars, I believe it was either Henry Clark or Dr. Ben, stated that the day the European image of Jesus is removed and replaced with a black one in churches, most black people will stop going to church. Now I agree with that, don't you? See, the same power we associate with an image, we extend to those who look like that image. This is Psychology 101. It's actually not that deep. It explains the deference with which we treat white people in contrast to our very selves. Whether it is when we get off a plane in Africa or the Caribbean and the way they rush to grab the Europeans' bags instead of ours, or the OTT smiles and favors that we extend in our shops and restaurants towards white people. You think this image has nothing to do with it? This image has occupied the most important part of most of all the households we've all grown up in. So psychologically, we've grown to afford it respect. It's so embedded, we are not even conscious of it. Now let's look at what the actual Bible has to say about false representations. Exodus 20 verses 4 to 16. You must not make for yourself an idol or any kind or an image of anything in the heavens or on the earth or in the sea. You must not bow down to them or worship them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, will not tolerate your affection for any other gods. I actually found over 25 of these similar quotes on a Christian website that, funnily enough, seems to be attacking Catholicism for their representations of Mary, but not a word about the many faces of Jesus. But we won't get into this in-house fighting now. That's not part of this debate. So it's absolutely laughable when Christians are the ones accusing spiritualists of being idol worshippers. It must take one to know one, right? Even though the point of correction is, we don't have idols in African spirituality, period. They try to conflate their concepts with African spiritual concepts and principles, but they are not the same. When the Haitian earthquake happened, how many black Christians were online agreeing with this deranged evangelist, Pat Robinson, who claimed it was a result of a pact with the devil? If they weren't that ill-informed, they'd know that there's no such thing as Satan or devil in the traditions. The concept of evil, yes, but some being as powerful as the same God that created it, a big fat no. So instead of being willing to help their own brothers and sisters, their response was pretty much, well, it serves them right. Yet what does Matthew 25 verses 40 tell us? And the king shall answer and say unto them, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye have done it unto one of the least of these my brethren, you have done it unto me. So where was this support then? Because at the time when it is claimed Jesus was alive, there was no such word as Christian, right? So who do you think the brothers there refers to? Everyone, all of humanity. In that case, I can guess we can safely say most Christians may not actually know their scriptures in any depth, because their assistance then became a weapon for evangelicism. Either you convert and accept this Bible in my hand, or no food. Does this sound like altruism to you, or plain and simple blackmail? Yet, look at the outpouring of assistance and support given to the so-called Christian Yazidis when ISIS was brutalizing them. If anyone had done their homework, they would have also found that the dominant traditional religion of a majority of them is actually God or the highest deity as a peacock. This is why a majority of Muslims hated them, because they have deemed them as pagans too, simply because of some passages in the Quran. Yet because the media has reported them as being solely Christian, they are deemed worthy of support from black Christians, but not those who look like them in Haiti. Remember this other point of disunity and lack of cooperation that I earlier mentioned? Can you see it in action now? Religions are creating a gang mentality that prescribes that if you're not in it, then you might as well burn in hell. But what happened to the core values of love thy neighbor? Look at this book the Christian sect Jehovah Witnesses passed to me on my front door. November 16 edition. Look at the people depicted in heaven. Can you see anything disconcerting here? Not a single black face in the whole book or in heaven. If this was a government publication in this day and age, can you imagine the uproar and protest that would ensue under the banner of underrepresentation and racism? I mean, there's space for animals in the book, but the only place with a black face is on the back. Rosa Parks certainly wouldn't have had that, would she? Yet, it's 3 black women who I saw doing the donkey work, walking up and down the road, handing the stuff out that doesn't even reflect them. Remember also the subservient attitude that I mentioned earlier that religion encourages in the mind of Africans? In my opinion, this is racist propaganda to intimate that a bird deserves a place in a book as a messenger of spiritual matters, but not a black person. Now, in many Christian camps across the world, this is how many people and traditionalists are saved by Jesus. Ask what comes to mind. Are these not the same manacles that were used to enslave us once upon a time? Yet this time, the supremacist at the end of a chain is a fellow black person. They usually call themselves pastors, apparently God's representatives on this earth. And increasingly, what we get are also reports of sexual abuse. So no wonder then that the witches are usually women and their deliverers men. Seems like the only reason most of these pastors are eager to take out these so-called demons is so they can also put in their own bits. It's disgusting behavior. Yet the global Christian community is largely silent on this. When I bring it up, most of what I get is, well, these people are not really Christians, are they? Really? They use the same book of instruction as you. They call the same God name as you. They pray in the same manner in which you do. How can they not be Christians? If it looks like a duck, waddles like a duck, quacks like a duck, then it must be a duck. If this was the name of an African deity or energy being misused in this manner, we can be rest assured that either that priest is dropping dead or will be afflicted by some serious affliction to prevent that from happening in the future. So where is this just God that religious people speak about? Because the African deities are quick to act and execute justice, especially being misrepresented, doesn't seem the same with the Christian God. Now, this picture is one I really want you to focus on. The very thing being held onto for hope is the same thing that has justified the horrendous suffering. Let me repeat that again. The very thing being held onto for hope is the very same thing that has justified the horrendous suffering. Now, can you tell me how any of this makes any sense? There is no shortage of Christian articles advocating for the rights of Christians to be protected across the world, going on about the plight of Christians globally. I can find thousands of these articles online. But interestingly, I cannot find any of Christians denouncing the behavior of other Christians who are abusing others and persecuting others in the name of the Christian God. Even though we have countless reports from reputable organizations such as the United Nations, UNICEF, the BBC, who have all shown that there is huge amounts of abuse being perpetrated by religious bodies on indigenous African spiritualists. They are being persecuted for their faith. Now again, this reinforces the point I was making about lack of unity and this gang mentality. Yes? So persecution against Christians will be denounced regardless of ethnicity, yet there is no mention of it when it's against non-Christians who are black. Shouldn't persecution be denounced as standard simply because it's immoral and wrong, rather than speaking on it only if it affects you due to your religious orientation. So this reinforces the earlier point I was making about lack of unity and this gang mentality, because persecution against Christians is denounced regardless of ethnicity, yet no mention when it's against non-Christians who happen to be black too. Shouldn't persecution be denounced as standard simply because it's immoral and wrong, rather than only making it your concern because it's affecting those who share your religious affiliation? Why do I advocate for African spirituality? Because of the breadth and depth of understanding and perception that one gains from its principles alone. Then the possibilities that can be manifested through dedicated and continuous practice. To use an analogy, why would one settle for a page in a book when they can benefit from the whole contents of the book itself? When we take time out to really explore it for its depth, in its philosophies, and how it can broaden our viewpoints and understanding of each other beyond the scaremongering witchcraft it's stigmatized with, we will be pleasantly surprised. So, the question really should not have been, is religion for African people? Rather, it should be, will religion allow a peaceful coexistence with African spirituality? Thank you for listening, and I'll look forward to your comments.